cross of our Lord, through which the world has been crucified to me and I to the world. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Jesus and his disciples set out for the villages of Caesarea Philippi. And along the way, Jesus asked his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" They said in reply, "John the Baptist, others Elijah, still others, one of the prophets." And then Jesus asked them, "But who do you say that I am?" And Peter said to him in reply, "You are the Christ." But then Jesus warned them not to tell anyone about him. He began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer greatly and be rejected by the elders, the chief priests, and the scribes, and be killed and rise after 3 days. Jesus spoke this openly. But then Peter took him aside and began to rebuke Jesus. At this, he turned around and, looking at his disciples, rebuked Peter and said, "Get behind me, Satan. You're thinking not as God does, but as human beings do." Then Jesus summoned the crowd with his disciples and said to them, "Whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself or herself, take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake and that of the gospel will save it." The gospel of the Lord. This is my "don't go there?" sermon. Anybody told you don't go there? Have you ever received that rebuke? Don't go there. Usually the hand goes up. You've heard that expression, talk to the hand, right? I don't like talking to a hand. That makes me even madder, when people say this. "Don't go there, Father." "Don't go there, Jim," depending on who I'm with. And so I say that with a question mark. Don't go there sermon here. And Jesus gives us the remedy. What is it? Go there. And look at all the people who have gone there here today. We're packed today. Well, we got a lot of people here. Why? Because a lot of people went there. And in these days, it's kind of hard to go to church when people might say, "Why are you going to that church?" Something inside of you overcame that obstacle. And Jesus is cheerleading on us to go there. Jesus says, "I have to go to Jerusalem and suffer greatly and even be killed, and on the third day be raised." He says that kind of nonchalantly in this kind of string of events that he has to do. But Peter panics like any practical person probably would. He didn't become a successful fisherman for nothing. He knew how to do fishery. And Peter says, "Oh, God forbid, Lord, no such thing will ever happen to you, to be killed." Peter's thinking inside the box, prudently. I know he loved Jesus. He's trying to discourage Jesus from harm. I can relate to that. But then Jesus gives this one-liner, "Get away from me, Satan. You're thinking as man does and not as God does." Kind of shocking to be called Satan. But I wonder how Jesus said it. I like to visualize the exchange. Maybe it wasn't as direct. Maybe it was kind of like be careful of the evil seduction with a, "Get away from me, Satan. You're thinking as man." The inflection. We don't know the drama there, do we? I'd love to have a camera to get the right inflection from Jesus. We have to imagine how Jesus would have talked to Peter. Maybe even put his hand on Peter's cheek or his shoulder. "You're thinking like man, Peter. Get away from me, Satan." Or maybe Jesus unloaded and says, "Get away from me, Satan." I don't know if he would do that, but We've probably all experienced different manifestations of being rebuked. And Jesus keeps saying, I have to go there. Just like our PSR, our CIA, baptismal leaders here, our musicians, our altar servers, our lectors, they all had to have some inner resolve to go there. And sometimes you might be called to go to a place that is very dark and challenging. I once read a comic strip called The Far Side. Anybody know The Far Side? Remember that one panel comic strip by Gary Larson? I think I've mentioned this before here. I have a book of his comics. The young people might not know Far Side. Do you know The Far Side? He puts like animals and insects are talking to kind of remind us of the foibles of humanity, and people say funny things. Here's one I want to share with you. It features a suburban couple showing their vacation slides to friends. They're standing, here comes the slide, and there's the older father and the older mother standing next to Satan in front of flames. And the caption is, "Oh yes, this is when Helen and I went to hell and back." There it is. Have you ever gone to hell and back? Most likely you didn't have a choice, or maybe you did, maybe you didn't have a choice. Something pulled you to go to hell and back. Most likely, can I guess? Love. Ironically. People say, don't go there. Even when you have to face a difficult problem head on, when you have to do the heavy lifting, maybe give 150%. Maybe a service trip to Appalachia, Haiti, work in a poor and dangerous neighborhood, go to medical school, go to law school, go on a tour of a country like Israel that might be a little dangerous in some people's eyes, work in a soup kitchen in a rundown neighborhood, have knee surgery, go to a weight loss center. These are all things that people could say, don't go there. I'm looking out for your best interest. Are you? To go to Jerusalem, or more specifically Calvary, could be a symbolic journey. Maybe Jerusalem is in your own home. Maybe it's in a marriage that you've been in for 60 years. Might seem like Calvary sometimes, but you stay there and you're there. Logic gets thrown out the window when people say, oh, it's not practical. We're often advised by society, seek pleasure, not pain. Give yourself a break. It's not healthy. You can't mean you're going to do what? Why would you put yourself through that? The work, the blood, the sweat, the tears, the stress, the sacrifice. Don't do this to your family. It'll kill me. This isn't about you, hun. When someone rebukes you, it's about you, not the person rebuking you. When you feel called to take up a cross, in fact, you might be wearing one right now. Why? Why are you wearing a cross? Ask yourself that, because you believe in it. It's critical to the Catholic faith. I like to say to cross over from doubt to faith, unhealthy to healthy, and that crossover is treacherous. But we have these 7 sacraments that help us along the way to faith. And in the gospel we hear, do unto others as they would do unto you. Jesus said that. That's fine, but he takes it one step further. That's step 1. Step 2 is love your enemies. Ouch. That's hard, isn't it? That's where the men, we separate the men from the boys, the women from the girls. Can you go there? Where you don't want to love an enemy or somebody who's unbearable, unlovable. Peter saying, you're thinking, oh, Peter, you are thinking like a human being, and we think like human beings. And, I did a little inventory of people. I thought, who are people who have gone there? Some kind of famous and not so famous people. I thought of this nun named Dorothy Kazel. She was an Ursuline nun from Cleveland, Ohio. She felt called to serve in El Salvador. She went to help, especially women who were oppressed, disenfranchised, people who were losing their farms to unscrupulous government rules, paramilitary, terrible education, sickness, violence, drugs. She went to El Salvador. Her family said, don't go there, Dorothy, you're Dottie. Dottie means you're a little crazy. Ironically, that was her name. But Dorothy means love of God. Dorothea. She went and she paid with her life. She was killed by some people in El Salvador who didn't believe in her cause in 1980. Also in 1980, we have a man who is going to be canonized next month, Oscar Romero. He was a priest in El Salvador, the same country, and he could not be a priest. Elevating the Eucharist one day, he was assassinated by the government. Paramilitary killed him because he spoke out for rights of the poor and those who were being killed, the disappeareds. He paid with his life. Oscar Romero will be canonized, as I said, in October in Rome. And then finally, Sister Helen Prejean. I get a lot of mileage out of her. She's still alive. She's still kicking. God bless her. She speaks out against capital punishment. She wrote to men on death row. Her mom in the movie says, "You're in deep water, kid. Don't go there." Helen felt she had to go there. Can you imagine? It's not easy. I've been in prisons. I've never been into a death row unit. That's not a fun place. No picnic. But she went there because she believed in the dignity of even those people who are about to die. What about you? When have you gone there? And I'll finish with a quick little description of a film that I love and I recommend you getting. I saw this film. It reminds me of the courage in many people, even people sitting here in this parish, who have been compelled to do what might frighten them. Speak in public, be a teacher, speak up here, whatever. People who might be told by well-meaning advisors, why would you want to be Catholic? The film is called Marvin's Room. Marvin is a bedridden elderly man being cared for by his unmarried daughter, now in her 50s. Diane Keaton plays the daughter. She's her father's primary caregiver, feeds him, bathes him, changes his diapers. I would imagine many of you have had this experience. Then unexpectedly, she herself is diagnosed with bone cancer. It sounds kind of like a downer film, but I can't tell you how uplifting it ends for me. Diane's, because she has bone cancer or scare, her freewheeling and self-centered sister, Meryl Streep, in the movie, must drive to Florida, where Diane Keaton is there with her ailing father. She brings her wild and undisciplined son, Leonardo DiCaprio, when he was a teenager. A beautiful scene in the film is in the end, when Diane learns that her bone marrow transplant did not work. Now she perhaps faces terminal cancer, and in her nervousness, knocks over 100 pills on the counter. Then we have this encounter of two sisters, Meryl and Diane, Meryl Streep, Diane Keaton, stoop down to pick up the pills, and Meryl Streep looks at Diane and pities her. She says, thinking, you've missed everything in life. You're not married, you have an unconventional life, you have no children, but she's been devoted to her father in a couple's world where it's not cool, perhaps. Perhaps a life that Jesus led. Finally, Meryl, or Lee, as her name is in the movie, is somewhat embarrassed by Diane's reaction. And Diane Keaton says, "Oh, Lee, I have had such love in my life." And Meryl Streep says, "Yes, Dad loves you." And Diane says, "No, that's not what I mean. I mean, I love him. I've been able to give so much love. I've been so lucky to have had the chance to love somebody, to be able to care for someone like I've been doing with Dad." And that's what Jesus is saying to Peter, I think. "Oh, Peter, you don't get what I mean. I'm so loved by my Father who loves me. I'm doing this because I love God and I love you. Let me go. Let me go to my mission, even if it's in El Salvador, even if it's to the Catholic Church nowadays, even if it's to serve as a leader in the church where it's not cool." Blaise Pascal, the philosopher, said, "The heart knows reason that reason doesn't know," meaning the heart has a different priority system of love. Practicality might not always match it, but we listen to our hearts. So this is what love looks like right here. Could you please remain